What's up, YouTube? This is True Raw for TV. All right. So shout out to LB and shout out to Mahari Sports Nation's podcast. I saw they did videos, covering this weekend's activities. And I share LB's sentiment about the hypocrisy of ESPN. Everybody giving him a collective blowjob when over the past several years, especially, they've done everything they can to try to minimize the um, the dominance and the efficacy of his career when it pertains to the Lakers franchise. I do want to say this though, Lisa Salters, um, damn. Mm-mm. Hmm. Anyway, earlier today it was reported that Ben Wallace had been selected for the 2021 class, which will be inducted later this summer, late this summer. Uh, I'm assuming, they gave the call to Ben Wallace and it was leaked by an anonymous source to mass media. But it's also been reported that Paul Pierce, okay, also has been selected for the 2021 Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. And this was a no brainer. He was the most likely choice of all Hall of Famers to be selected. And the resume more than suits it. I mean, he was one of the best scorers of his era. He played 19 years in the NBA. During his 19-year NBA career, he averaged almost 20 points, grabbed 5.5 rebounds, averaged 3.5 assists per game, was one of the more reliable late game performers, often leading the NBA or being amongst the NBA leaders in points scored in the fourth quarter. One of the better clutch players in the NBA, probably second to only, Kobe and maybe Carmelo Anthony as far as clutch performances. And if you think I'm lying about Carmelo Anthony, look at the numbers. You look at the stats, and they show that in the fourth quarter, Carmelo Anthony was statistically, especially during his prime, the best clutch performer in the NBA. But back to Paul Pierce, he was a prime-time scorer. He wasn't the most athletic guy, but he got his buckets mainly through being efficient for his era, shooting usually around 45, 47% from the floor, 46% from the floor, a master of the mid-range, eventually became a dependable three-point shooter, and he used his size and his angles to get buckets, and he got a lot of them. I believe he scored over 26,000 points in his career, and he was a 10-time All-Star. He did most of his damage with the Boston Celtics, but he also played, I believe, with the Wizards and with the Nets before coming back and signing a one-day contract with the Celtics to retire as a Boston Celtic. Now, the one thing about Paul Pierce is that he knew the sweet glory of reaching the mountaintop of winning an NBA championship, going to an NBA Finals and winning an NBA championship and winning Finals MVP, because he knew the deep valley of playing on a bad team. Uh, when he first went to Boston, those were the post Todd Day, Rick Fox, Dino Raja Boston Celtics. And initially it was him and Antoine Walker. And they were not a really good team initially. Now they had a little run around 2001, 2002, maybe 2003 when they were a pretty good team. But afterward, that team fell apart, and Paul Pierce was part of some really bad teams before the trade happened in 2007, uh, um, which brought Kevin Garnett there, and the free agent signing it with Ray Allen, and then the drafting of Rondo, and then that's when that team came to pass, and They dominated the Eastern Conference for about 5 years. Paul Pierce also knew adversity. He was nearly killed in a stabbing in September of 2000. He was able to overcome that, and he played all 82 games during the 2000-2001 season. I think his best statistical season was probably 2005, 2006, the year when they first began to open up the NBA, and you saw the transition from where the NBA was before, which was more of a half court, defensive affair, which was decided more in the trenches, and from that NBA into what it is today. I think Paul Pierce averaged something like over 27 points a game that year, or close to it. But Paul Pierce is more than deserving. Um, I don't have him as a top 10 all-time small forward, but he's definitely in the top 15 categories for all small forwards are concerned. I always thought that Boston Celtics fans didn't appreciate him the way they should have. I always thought that he was unfairly compared to Larry Bird. You know what I'm saying? That used to always aggravate me with some Celtics fans. But I want to say this. Congratulations to Paul Pierce. Congratulations to Ben Wallace. Now, usually, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but usually they don't induct more than 3 NBA players per year. That's 2 NBA players that's already been confirmed. I don't think Tim Hardaway is getting in. I do believe that they're going to induct Chris Bosh. That's just my guess. I could be wrong, but I think they're going to induct. They're going to announce that they're going to induct Chris Bosh into the Hall of Fame, and if that happens, then I think that once again Chris Webber will be snubbed. And if he does get snubbed tomorrow, I'm going to go on a one-man personal crusade to try to get him inducted to the Hall of Fame because it makes absolutely no sense for him not to be in the Hall of Fame. Now, this isn't a knock on Ben Wallace, but Chris Webber was infinitely a better player overall than Chris Webber, a more dominant player than Ben Wallace. Chris Webber was, and there's some criticisms of him. He never won a championship. You could come sometimes even put the onus on him that sometimes in big games he didn't step up the way that a superstar should. That's a fair assessment. But as a player, Chris Webber always in his prime raised the overall stature of every franchise that he played with in his prime. Whether you're talking about the Golden State Warriors, especially the Washington Wizards slash Bullets when he was there, and then even more so the Sacramento Kings when he was there. Before he went to the Kings, they were a laughingstock franchise only known for one guy, Mitch Richmond. He gets there, they become arguably the best overall team in the NBA for a while, for a little bit. When I say best overall, I mean on paper, you could argue they were a better team than Shaq and Kobe's Lakers. Not saying that they had two that were better than Shaq and Kobe or more dominant, but outside of them, they had a really. You got to remember, you have to look back and look at that team that I'm talking about. The bench mob, they had a great goddamn bench. Bobby Jackson, all those guys that could score and shoot the basketball. They're almost like a slight small precursor to the NBA today with all these shooters and scorers. But they're also a great defensive team with great little pieces, guys that can play defense. And when he was with the Washington Bullets slash Wizards, his team in 1997, even though they got swept by the Chicago Bulls in the first round, the 69 win Chicago Bulls, all of those games were close. Game three was won on a slam dunk. If I remember correctly, Jordan drove to the basket, lost the ball. Scottie Pippen got the loose ball and dunked it and re-aggravated his bad back, which plagued him for all the rest of the playoffs. As a matter of fact, I think when he hurt his back dunking it, that was a gradual problem with his back that never really got better. And in game two, it took Jordan scoring 55 points to beat that team by what, 6 points or 4 points? I can't remember the spread anymore. And Jordan called that Bullets team the team of the future. So yes, Chris Webber should be in the Hall of Fame. The guy averaged 29 and like 4.5 for his career. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Chris Webber does get inducted. But I have a sneaking suspicion that the three NBA players inducted tomorrow are going to be Paul Pierce, Chris Bosh, and Ben Wallace. But we'll see. Tell me what you guys think.